part 3, I'm going to be covering putting the actual supercharger onto the engine. As you'll see in the video, I used a shop crane to do this, and I think it'll be pretty clear why I used a shop crane to do it. The supercharger needs to be maneuvered around AC lines and wiring harnesses, which would be really tough to do by yourself, given the weight and bulk of the supercharger. I also cover to some degree some of the things I did in the engine bay after removing the manifold, but prior to installing the supercharger. One big thing I did that I don't have any video of is changing the spark plugs. That's kind of the most annoying maintenance task you ever have to do on these cars, and it will be much easier to do with the manifold and the fuel rails completely out of the way than it would be at any other time. So I would strongly recommend doing it now while you have the opportunity. The other thing that I did not get great footage of is the process of trimming back wiring conduit and removing foam from the top of the engine block in order to facilitate good wire routing for the supercharger. Harrop has pretty good pictures of this in their instruction manual, so I think you'll be able to figure it out. Basically, you're trimming that black plastic conduit, the top of it, all the way off back to the high pressure fuel rail and separating some of the wires in there so that you can route them around the driver's side of the AC compressor. I got some footage of how I have the wires routed and secured, but it's not the best. The important thing is keeping wires on that driver's side of the AC compressor instead of the passenger side where they're usually running, because that's where the actuator for the supercharger's recirculator valve is going to be sitting, and it will interfere with those and prevent the supercharger from seating properly if you don't route them the right way. All right, I hope you guys enjoy. This video will be a little bit longer than the last one because getting the supercharger in there is a somewhat time-consuming process. As always, I welcome any feedback you have, and I hope you enjoy the video. Another thing I've decided to do here is relocate the PCV valve. I'm going to have it after the catch can. It's where the PCV valve is currently located right here will be completely and totally inaccessible with the supercharger installed. Changing it would involve draining the coolant loop for the supercharger intercoolers, removing the supercharger, putting it back on, refilling the intercoolers. Draining and refilling the intercoolers would be a tremendous pain in the ass and not something I really want to do. I've found these are basically wear items. I've yet to have one of these valves last more than 10,000 miles before it gets gunked up. So hopefully relocating it in the circuit till after the catch can will increase its lifespan in a meaningful way. I'm going to be putting this guy into the block, which is just a 3/8 NPT male by 5/8 hose barb fitting, because the PCV line is 5/8 or AN10. Just going to slap some liquid Teflon on this guy and put it in place. I ended up settling on the Verus Air Oil Separator to relocate the PCV valve. It has a slot in the AOS already for the PCV, which makes it convenient. It's located in a space that's totally unused in my build, behind the battery, and it can fit a Fumoto drain valve, which is very convenient for maintenance. What's going to interfere most with the final alignment when the supercharger is very nearly seated are the wiring looms that run at the back of the engine. The one on the driver's side is pretty easy to deal with. On the passenger side, I needed to use a small pry tool to position the looms up above the flange on the supercharger's manifold.
On the passenger side of the supercharger, both the forward and rear bolt holes are covered up by wiring harnesses. Dealing with the loom on the front coming off the alternator is pretty easy. Getting the bolt in the back is a pain. It's really tough to squeeze a hand in there. It's tough to see what's going on. The supercharger itself is positioned directly above the hole, so you can't come in straight from the top. And there's really not a lot of play in the two looms that are both running directly over that hole. It'll take a little bit of fiddling to get that bolt in place.
Another thing we have to do is reconnect the Evap, the fuel purge system. So this is the line that we installed on the manifold. The actual purge line is right here. We still have this guy, the bracket that connects them. That can get screwed into this hole here, which is a mounting plate for the fuel injector cover. This is the bolt that will fit in that hole, and it is just a little bit too big for this hole here. So we're going to have to drill this guy out for it to fit. All right, fits in there perfectly. I just have it in loosely for the moment while I get everything routed and set up back here. Other thing I did was cut the coolant fittings off the throttle body. The instructions just said to remove them, but I couldn't figure out how to remove them without cutting them. I put this guy in a vise and clamped onto them as hard as I could with vice grips. I tried twisting, I tried yanking. They weren't going anywhere. They would kind of spin freely in place a little bit with great difficulty, but they didn't feel like they were threaded in there. And they were in there tight enough that me standing on the vise and pulling as hard as I could with vice grips, I couldn't get them to budge a millimeter. So I just cut them off. Other thing I'm doing right now is getting the catch cans, the PCV system set up. This is from the crankcase breather right here. It runs from under the AC compressor. By default, it kind of comes out forward of the manifold, but I think it might be a somewhat cleaner install to have it routed back here instead. I'm going to mess around a little bit and see. After reclocking that fitting, putting everything back together, I'm not seeing any signs of smoke leaking from anywhere. next step is installing the throttle body. This is how the throttle body should be oriented. The electronic controller, the motor for the throttle body goes up top. This is what the throttle body bolts look like. They're bare here, and then they thread into holes here on the manifold. Torque spec on these guys is 10 foot-pounds, so I'm putting them into hand tight, then cranking to 5 in a star pattern, then cranking to 10. That's probably not really necessary, but sealing surfaces like this, I like to be extra careful, and it takes all of an extra 2 minutes to do it that way.
I made a modification to the Airbox to facilitate different routing of the crankcase breather hose. In the instructions, Harrop has it routed between the factory oil cooler and the pulley where it runs up over the AC compressor. Clearance here is pretty tight, and I just didn't love having the hose that close to the pulley. By putting a new barb in the Airbox over in this side, I could run the hose through space that was otherwise unoccupied. It's worth noting that since I am running an air oil separator, the hose routing for me is a little bit different than it will be for you if you're just using the hose that's coming directly out of the crankcase. But I think this kind of approach could still work if you felt more comfortable with it personally.